Hello my friends, today we're learning Basra Daf Kuf Ayin Vov, the last daf in Maseches Basra, the last daf of Seder Kamet, Mitzir, Basra. It's a very, very exciting day for me, and I'm chapping myself on the back literally, because it's not simple to continue every day and learn the Gemara and give it over. It's something that in the past I didn't think I'd have the ability to do, and I'm very grateful that I can. First of all, I would like to say that the shiurim in the future in Maseches Sanhedrin are going to be in Hebrew. I decided it's going to be more meaningful for me to say it in Hebrew, and I'm sorry if anyone doesn't work out for him, but that's a big change that's going to be. That's number one. And to get this moment of finishing over a year of giving shiurim and finishing the three big masechtas of Nezikin, I couldn't do this without two people, and I'm very, very grateful for them. The first one is my father, who always pushes me forward and learns with me nearly every day. We go over through the sugyas, and he's always knows the raid, and he knows the Rishonim, and he helps me very much to understand, and he pushes me, and by that I could see that it's important for him. And it makes me want to do it even more, and I'm very grateful for him. Secondly, to my dear wife Yuval Chana, that she always tells me, maybe give a share now, maybe learn some more, prepare, go ahead, I believe in you. If I wouldn't be married to her, I don't think this would be happening. Thank you very much. I'm greatly honored that you're my wife, and I'm greatly honored that you push me forward, realizing that you realize how important it is for me, and how important it is for you, and how important it is for us. And the most important, I'm grateful for Hashem that I have the ability to do this. I'm grateful for Hashem for the basic thing that I'm standing over here, that I could stand and I could talk and I could breathe, and for sure that I could learn His Heilige Torah. There's nothing better that I do in the day than learning Torah, and thank you Hashem for my deepest part of my heart that I'm standing over here finishing these three masechtas. Okay, let's go straight into it from the two dots. Kuf Ayin Vov Amud Aleph. Oitzi Olov Ksav Yodoi Shu Chayev Loi. Goyvim Minechosim Noichorim. So we learned in the Mishnah that if Reuven comes to Beis Din and he has a written shtar saying that Shimon owes him $1 million with the signature of Shimon, it's a proof that he could claim from Shimon $1 million, but he could only claim from Nechosim that Shimon has, Neichorim, not from Nechosim Mishabodim that Shimon sold after the loan. From that, Reuven can't claim. It says the Gemara, we're going to read the Gemara and explain. By Minei Rabbam Bar Natan Rabbi Yochanan. Huchzak כתב ידו בבית דין מאי. אמר לאף על פי שהוחזק כתב ידו בבית דין, אינו גובה אלא מנכסים נכורים. מה תברא מבר חמא? 3 גיטין פסולים, ואם נישא טבלת כשר, ואלו הן כתב בכתב ידו ואין עליו עדים. יש עליו עדים ואין בו זמן, יש בו זמן ואין בו אלא עד אחד, הרי אלו 3 גיטין פסולים, ואם נישא טבלת כשר. רבי אליעזר אומר, אף על פי שאין עליו עדים, אלא שנתנו לה בפני עדים כשר, וגובה מנכסים משועבדים, שענייתם למשעת כתיבה ותשעבד נפשי. So Gemara asks Shaila, it's very clear that if Reuben comes to Beis Din with a document saying that Shimon owes him a certain amount of money, he could claim off Shimon. What's the din if after they wrote this document, Reuben went to Beis Din and he wanted to do a handpick to prove that this is a good document, that Reuben actually wrote it, and Beis Din looked into it and they saw, yes, this is Shimon's handwriting, and they signed, and Beis Din approved that this is a good shtar, and even Eidim are written on the shtar. Or without Eidim, but it's a handpicked. Beis Din said this is a good shtar. In such a case, does this become a proper shtar, like with a shtar of Eidim that you could be goyva from the Nechosim Mishabodim, from the Nechosim that Shimon sold after the loan, or after the date that they went to Beis Din, or not? What's the thing? So this Shaila, Rabbi Nosson asked Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan answered to him, even though that he went to Bezdin and he did a handpick on the star, you can't be goiva only from Nechosim Neichorim and not from Nechosim Meshubodim. So Rami Bar Chama asked the kasha on this. We learned about Gittin, that there's 3 types of Gittin that the Lichatchila they apostle, but if a lady got such a get and she got married, the Vlad is no mamza, the Vlad's kosher. And what's those 3 Gittin? 1, it's written in the handwriting, but there's no Eidim. 2nd, there is Eidim, but it doesn't have a date. And the 3rd one doesn't even have, there's only 1 Eid written on it. So these 3 Gittin are possible lechatchila, but if she got married with such a get, the Vlad's kosher, it's no mamza. Rabbi Lezer argues and he holds Eidim Mesira Karati, and he says, even though if there's no Eidim on a get, it's enough that he gave it the get in front of Eidim, and we have these Eidim to testify that this get was given, so it's kosher. No problem with such a get. And continues Rabbi Lezer and says that you could be goiva with such a star from the Nechosim Meshubodim. And Rashbam explains that it means if it's a star that's not get, a star of Alavol that doesn't have Eidim in it, but Eidim saw that was given over, it's good enough. And you can be goiva from the Nechosim Meshubodim. So why by us, when you do a handpick on Chtav Yodoi, why can't you be goiva from the Nechosim Meshubodim? Why does Rabbi Yochanan say you can't be goiva from the Nechosim Meshubodim? Says the Gemara, the difference is that over there, very good, there's no Eidim in the star, but b'shas Chtivas HaShtar, it was meant to be a proper star that you should be goiva from the Nechosim Meshubodim, and it has a koil, because it was Eidim that was given over. So it's a proper star, you can be goiva from the Nechosim Meshubodim. But over here, the star at the beginning, what was it? It was only a star between Reuven and Shimon. It doesn't have a koil, and therefore you can't be goiva from the Nechosim Meshubodim. Or afterwards you went to Bezdin and you did a handpick. A handpick only makes that this star that came in front of Bezdin is not forged, but it doesn't make it into a stronger type of star, and that's the difference between the 2 cases. Continues the Gemara, Aryeh vayotze la'achar chitum shtarot. So we learned in the Mishnah that if you have a guarantor who is signed after the Eidim in the star, so you could only be goiva from the, we had a machloikis about it, if you could be goiva from the Nechosim Neichorim, or you could be goiva, that's Shittas Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Benana told you can't be goiva at all. Let's read the Gemara. אמר רב, קודם חיתום שטרות גובה מנכסים משועבדים, לאחר חיתום שטרות גובה מנכסים נכורים. זימנים אמר רב, אפילו קודם חיתום שטרות אינו גובה אלא מנכסים נכורים. קשיא דרבא דרב, לא קשיא עד הכתב בי פלוני ערב, עד הכתב בי ופלוני ערב. ורבי יוחנן אמר, אחד זה ואחד זה אינו גובה אלא מנכסים נכורים. ואף על גב דכתב בי ופלוני ערב. מה טיב רבא, העדים החתומים על שאלת שלום בגט פסול, חיישינן שמה על שאלת שלום חתמו. ואמר רב אבאו, לדידי מפרש לימיני דרבי יוחנן, שאילו פסול ושאילו כשר. הכנמי דכתב פלוני ערב, יהיה אחי היינו דרב, אימה וכן אמר רבי יוחנן. So says Rav, if the guarantor is written in the star before where the Eidim signed, you could be goiva from the Aryeh from Nechosim Meshubodim. And if he's signed, the Aryeh as a guarantor is only signed after the place where the Eidim signed, you could only be goiva from Nechosim Neichorim from this guarantor. And then says the Gemara, sometimes Rav said that even if the Eidim, the guarantor is written before the Eidim, you could only be goiva from Nechosim Neichorim and not from Nechosim Meshubodim. Says the Gemara, Lechora, it's a steer Rav on the Rav. In one place he says that if the guarantor is written before the Eidim, you can take from Nechosim Meshubodim from the Aryeh. And in the other places he says that you can't take only from Nechosim Neichorim. So the Gemara, no, it's not kasha, depends. If in the star it says, Reuven borrowed of Shimon $1 million, and then it says, Ploini is the Aryeh, so it doesn't say Uploini is Aryeh, it doesn't say that it's a continuation, and then the Eidim are signed, so we assume that the Eidim signed on the star, not on the part of the Arevus, and therefore it's not like in a star with Eidim, and therefore in that case, that's when Rav said he could only be goiva, it's like a milva al peh, that he could only be goiva from the Aryeh, from the Nechosim Neichorim. But if it says in the star, Reuven took from a loan from Shimon of $1 million, and it has an and, or in Hebrew it has a vav, veploini orev, that means it's a continuation of the shtar, and then the edim are signed. In that case, so the orev is part of the shtar, and therefore we have edim on it, and therefore you could go over from the orev, also from the chosim meshubodim of the orev. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan says, doesn't matter if the orev is written before the edim, or doesn't matter if it's written after the edim. You can't be going from the orev only from the chosim nechorim, and not from the chosim meshubodim. And even though that it says uploini orev, even if the orev was signed before the edim, and it says uploini, and the ploini is orev, that we could see that it's part of the shtar, afilu achi, it says Rabbi Yochanan, you can't be going only from the chosim nechorim. Rava asked the kasha, we learned in the brisa, if edim, if you have a get, and at the end of the get it says, and this man asked someone else, how are you doing, sheila shalom, and afterwards the edim are chasumim, it's possible. Why? Because we're choishish, maybe they only signed saying that this Reuven asked Shimon, how are you doing? But they didn't sign on the get itself. And Rav Avo says, I was explaining from the name of Rabbi Yochanan, what's in this brisa, that depends. If it said she'ilu, that means it says a get, and then it says no continuation between the second part, and it says Reuven asked Shimon, how are you doing? And then the edim achosum, it's possible, because we assume that they signed on the sheila shalom. But if it says a get, that Reuven divorced Rachel, and then it says, and Reuven asked Rachel how she's doing, in that case it's kosher, because we can see it's a one document, and the edim are signing on the whole document. So also here, l'chorah, if it says a ploini orev, and ploini is orev, that means it's a continuation. So we should assume that the edim are signed also on the alva, and also on the guarantor, and therefore why can't you be going from the chosim mishubodim? So the Gemara, no, over here it's talking about the Rabbi Yochanan said that if the edim or if the guarantor is signed before the edim, they could only take from the chosim nechorim. It's somewhere where the guarantor says ploini orev, it doesn't say ve ploini orev. So the Gemara, if so, it's exactly like Rav. What are they arguing about? That's what Rav said. On that the Gemara says, yeah, enochinam, instead of saying that Rabbi Yochanan Omar Bigoretz Rabbi Yochanan Omar Mashma, that we argue, no, v'chein Omar Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan agrees with Divrei Rav, and therefore it comes out. If it says ploini orev, and then the edim are signed, so the edim are only signed on the loan, and if it says ve ploini orev, so the edim are signed on the loan and on the orev, and therefore you can be going from the orev, also from the chosim meshubodim bein Rav bein lefi Rabbi Yochanan. We learned in the Mishnah, Ma'aseh U'bo Lifnei Rabbi Shmuel, that there was such a case, that there was an edim that was signed, a guarantor that was signed after Chitum Shtaros, and Rabbi Shmuel wanted to be goiva from Nechosim Nechorim, and Benanas told him, no, you're not goiva no Nechosim Meshubodim, and not from Nechosim Nechorim. And Benanas brought an example, a marshal, if someone sees Reuben goes in the street and he sees Shimon strangling Levi and saying, you owe me money, and Reuben tells Shimon, leave him alone, I'll pay you off. So for sure, and then Shimon leaves Levi, for sure Reuben doesn't need to pay, because he only did it to save him. He didn't mean to save. That means your orev is only if the whole loan happened because of him. But if the loan never happened because of him, the loan anyway happened, he's no guarantor. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Afal Pi Shekiles Rabbi Shmuel et Benanas Alacha Kamoto. Even though that in the Mishnah we see Rabbi Shmuel said that Benanas, if you want to know how to learn Nezikim, you should be Mishamish Benanas. It's mashma that we pass like Benanas. No, the halacha is like Rabbi Shmuel. The Arev after Chitim Shtaros, you could be goiva from the Chosim Nechorim. Says the Gemara, Ibailehu Bechanuk Mani, Amar Rabbi Shmuel. Tashma da Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Chanuk haya Rabbi Shmuel af b'Chanuk. Alachak kamoto, en alachak kamoto. Tashma dechiat Rabin Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Chanuk haya Rabbi Shmuel af b'Chanuk, v'alachak kamoto af b'Chanuk. So the Gemara wants to know, the example that Benanas brought about someone who's strangling, Shimon is strangling Levi for a loan, and Reuben tells him, leave him alone and I'll pay you. And there was obvious for Benanas that Reuben doesn't need to pay. Does Rabbi Shmuel also argue over there? and say that also over there, Reuven will need to pay. Says the Gemara, come and listen, the Rabbi Yaakov said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Shmuel argues also in the case where Reuven sees Shimon strangling Levi for a loan and he tells him to leave him and I'll pay, that Reuven needs to pay. Says the Gemara, is halacha like Rabbi Shmuel also in that case? Because we said in the other case where it's not, when it's in the shtar, but after the Eidim we pass like Rabbi Shmuel, not like bananas, but also in the Chanuk case do we pass like Rabbi Shmuel? So the Gemara, come and listen, when Rabbi came from Eretz Yisrael, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Shmuel was arguing also in the case of Chanuk, and the halachas like him even by Chanuk, even in the case of Chanuk, that you could say he only said it to save him. No, since you said I'm going to pay, if you leave him alone, he needs to pay. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Chanuk, v'kanu miyado, mishtabet, בכלל, דהרי בעלמא לא באי קניין. ופליגה דרב נחמן, דאמר רב נחמן, ערב דבית דין הוא דלא באי קניין, בעלמא באי קניין. So, the Gemara says, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, when we said the case of Chanuk, that Reuven saw Shimon strangling Levi for a loan, and Reuven said, leave alone and I'll pay, the Reuven only needs to pay, says Shmuel, only if he did a kinyan, if Shimon did a kinyan with Reuven, that Reuven did to be mischayev, to pay the loan, only then he has to pay. So, said the Gemara, from here we could see that only in such a case of Chanuk, then the Aryeh, the guarantor, needs to do a kinyan to be mischayev to pay. But in a normal case where it's not a case of Chanuk, you don't need to do a kinyan enough that the Aryeh says, I'm a guarantor, that's good enough, and he needs to pay if the loiva doesn't pay. So the Gemara, and that argues on Rav Nachman. The Rav Nachman said, Kufayin Vavam Beis, the Aryeh of Besdin, when an Aryeh is a guarantor in Besdin, then the Aryeh doesn't need to do a kinyan. But normally if it's non-Besdin, he does need to do a kinyan, and that's not like Shmuel, because Shmuel says, even non-Besdin, Aryeh does not need to do a kinyan. The only case where he needs to do a kinyan is if he's an Aryeh by a case of Chanuk. Says the Gemara, והלכתה ערב בשעת מתן מעות לא באי קניין. אחר מתן מעות באי קניין. ערב דבדין לא באי קניין. דבאי ענה דמאמן לא גמר ומשעבד לי. Finishes off the Gemara and finishes off the Basra and says, halacha is the guarantor, if he's there when Reuven, let's say Reuven the guarantor and Shimon gave a loan to Levi, if he was there when Shimon gave the money to Levi and he said, I'm a guarantor on this loan, then you don't need to do a kinyan, that Reuven should do a kinyan to be mischayev for this guarantor. But if Shimon gave a loan to Levi, and now on a later date we come to Reuven and they say, I want you to be the guarantor, and he says, I'm willing to be a guarantor, it's only chal if you do a kinyan. If you don't do a kinyan, it's not chal. And if he's Aryeh in Besdin, that means if the guarantor, this whole situation happens in Besdin, you don't need a kinyan even if he comes to Besdin after the loan happened. Shimon gave a loan to Levi, and only afterwards they come to Besdin and they say, we want to add on Reuven as a guarantor, and Reuven says, okay, so Reuven becomes a guarantor even without a kinyan. Oh, why do you not need a kinyan? We said after Matan Mois you need a kinyan. The reason is that he's getting a no. And with the ano, he's mishabed himself. And what's the ano? The ano is that he's a trustworthy person in Besdin. People see here in Besdin that this Reuven is trustworthy. That means we trust him as a guarantor for this loan. So that's a ano, that's a enjoyment for him. So with that enjoyment that Besdin trusts him and he has trust in Besdin that he's a guarantor, even without a kinyan, he's mishabed himself. And if Levi can't pay the loan, Reuven will need to pay the loan. Hadron aloch get poshut v'salika lo maseches bo bebasra. Hadron aloch, we're going to come back to you, maseches bo bebasra, the masecha bo bebasra, v'hadron chalon, and you'll come back to us. Daton aloch, we're thinking about you, maseches bo bebasra, v'dato chalon, and you think about us. Lo nisnashem inoch maseches bo bebasra, we're not going to forget you, maseches bo bebasra, v'lo tisnashem inon. Don't forget us. Maseches Bava Basra, please don't forget us. Loi be'alma odi, not on this world, but loi be'alma da'asi, not on next world. And I would like to say my own words of prayer that Hashem Borer Olam, I should be zoicha to remember this Masechta, to remember what I learned, to learn it many other times, to also Bobekaman, Bobemetzia, to learn it many other times and remember what I learned, and to finish lots of other Masechtas, and to finish Kol HaTorah Kula, and to be choizer all what I learned again and again and again, that it should be Munochim Bakufsa. I would like to celebrate with a small L'chaim this big occasion. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. And we'll just start the second Sanhedrin. I don't have it in front of me, but I think if I'm not mistaken it starts Dinei Momonos B'Shloisha. 3 Dayonim you need to paskin Ilches Momonos. And then we're going to see later on in the Mishnah what type of momonos, what type of 3D you need, etc. I just wanted to start. I recommend all of you start Masechta Sanhedrin. It's a very interesting Masechta, talking about the judges and how many judges you need, and different types of Misas Besdin, and it has about, if I'm not mistaken, about 30 Daf of Agadita. And if we start now Daf Hayomi, around Pesach time, you should be able to do a סיום. That's very exciting, and especially our days in Eretz Yisrael, there's a big conflict in the secular world. How should the Bagatz and how should the judges be? And we have our Torah that tells us exactly how it should be and how it was many, many years ago. And from Judaism, all the dinim come of Bet Mishpat and judges, and even the Goyim have a din of dinim to have judge, and without judges and without law, the world would be chaotic. And that's why it's so important to have laws about everything. Thank you very much for anyone who pushed me forward, anyone who followed, anyone who watched even a little bit. I really appreciate it. And Alevai will be zoicha very soon to see Geula Shleima Mamish. Thank you.